Here we are. We are live for a training. I'm just going to dive right in today, not waste any time. Today we are talking about the coverage for Hollywood Gatekeepers. I'm Carolyn J. Carpenter, one of the founders of Hollywood Gatekeepers, and I am going to describe today a few of the main questions that we get whenever we're talking about being a reader. So I'm Carolyn J. Carpenter, my partner Douglas Shaner and I, we are here with Hollywood Gatekeepers where we train people how to be expert readers in the film industry. So that is our main focus. And today we're going to talk about what it is that a reader does and why it's important. So a reader is someone who reads screenplays for a living. So basically, and Doug is here with me in the chat to say hello. So basically, a reader is someone who reads screenplays. So you've got people in the industry that are being offered projects, right? Like producers, directors, actors, everyone, costume designers, technicians, whatever it might be, they're being offered all these projects and they get screenplays that come to them and they need to decide if this is a screenplay and a project that they want to be involved in. And so they get so many screenplays across their desk, they simply don't have the time to read all of them. So they hire a reader. That's where the reader steps in. The reader comes in, they read the screenplay, they write something known as coverage. And that's kind of like a book report. So the reader reads the screenplay and then they write the coverage. So the coverage outlines kind of a general overview of what they think of the screenplay. There's usually a grid of some kind. There's different templates depending on where you read and the person that asked you to read the screenplay. But in general, there's a log line, which is like a TV guide little sentence that says what the screenplay is about. So that's called a log line, and that is at the top of a coverage. And just like when you're flipping through the channels and you have a log line that says, what the movie is, that's a log line, and that will be at the top of the coverage. Then there's typically a grid that also shows good, fair, bad, poor, with things like story, dialogue, characters, whatever it might be. So you kind of analyze the screenplay and you give your opinion to that. And then there's a place where you put a synopsis. The different templates are different. Sometimes you might do a little summary right there about what it's all about. Sometimes you might do a summary of your comments about what you think of the movie, of the screenplay. And then you do a synopsis. This is what the story is. And then you do comments, what worked, what didn't work, your final analysis. And then you give a rating as a reader, you'll say whether it should be a recommend, like definitely should do this project. It's a consider, maybe you should, but there's some problems you'll need to work out, or definitely a pass. This is not something that's ready for production. That's basically the role of a reader. So the reader will step in, will do those things, will analyze the analyze the screenplay, and then create a coverage report for that producer, director, writer, actor, for the person that asked them to read the screenplay. That's one scenario that a reader comes into play. Also, a reader might be hired by a producer or director or what they call a development executive, which is sometimes that's the same thing as a producer, but that's someone who works to get the screenplay ready for production. So let's say the company has decided we're definitely doing this movie. They still might hire a reader because they're developing the script, they're getting rid of problems, or sometimes an actor will get involved and they cast someone and then that actor says, oh, this role needs to be bigger. And so they're going to be rewriting the screenplay. So they'll give it to a reader for a reader to give their opinion to make sure that the story still works. The reader is focused on story, 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 story. So a lot of people ask, is a reader a proofreader, like typos, that kind of thing? In general, that is not your job. You are looking at the story, you're looking at the screenplay, you're looking to see, will this screenplay make a good movie? Period. If there are a lot of typos and grammar problems, you might comment on that because it takes you out of the story. You're focused on the story, 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 story. That's what a reader does. That's what a coverage is. So I wanted to make sure that we had one thing where we just focused in exactly on what is a reader, what is a coverage. So that is what a reader does. Sometimes a writer might hire a reader to read their screenplay, do a coverage for one of a couple of reasons. One, they just want to see, get some feedback on that screenplay. Very common. So a reader might want to read that screenplay, do a coverage, they give it back to the writer, and then the writer knows, oh, is what I'm doing, is that getting across? And often a writer will say to a reader, oh, I don't need you to do a synopsis. I know my story. But if you're a writer or a reader, I would say, if you're a reader and someone asks you to do that, you say, I highly recommend that you do the synopsis. And as a writer, if you get your screenplay covered, I highly recommend that you have them do a synopsis, because that's how you'll know what's coming across in your story. story. You'll know if the story is working, because if they leave out a subplot that's really important, you're like, why was that not even important enough to include in the coverage? So it'll give you insight into how your story is getting across. So a writer will hire a reader to do that. Write the synopsis about what the story is and then what works and doesn't work, simply so then they can go back to the drawing board and fix their screenplay. Also, a reader, or I keep interchanging them because they're so interchangeable. A writer might hire a reader to do a coverage so that then they can take that coverage to an agent and say, hey, look at this great coverage that I have. Look what they said about my screenplay, and you should be my agent. Or the agent might ask, an agent might have a reader cover a script of one of their clients so they can use that for producers. Hey, producer, take a look at this great coverage that we have on this screenplay. And if you are a reader and someone asks you to do a coverage for that reason, you want to make sure that you're always honest. You never write a coverage, I'm going to write a good coverage for this person, because one, that ruins your reputation and they won't get very far. Because if the coverage gets the script through the door, someone else is going to read that script and you'll all be found out. If the script is terrible and you have a really great coverage, people will be like, what's wrong with this picture? So that's another reason why a reader might be hired by someone. So, hello, everybody. I'm glad that people are coming in. I'm just kind of going through the basics of reader, writer, coverage, all of that. So it is not the same as annotation. Really good question. So a reader is really focused on the story. Does it work? Is the dialogue good? Do the characters ring true? Are they authentic? Does the subplot? Is the structure? All of the things that go into a screenplay, that's what a reader is looking for. Now, if you are hired by a production company kind of further down the line, they know that they're doing this project, or a writer hires you and says, hey, I really need a lot of help. Now you're moving into coaching or consulting, depending on, consulting is primarily focusing on the script, whereas coaching is usually helping out the writer get those pages done, that kind of thing, cheerlead. But focusing as a consultant, you might do some annotation there where you're saying, oh, really fix this. But in general, that's a consultant's job where they're working with the writer, or the development director's job where they're working with the writer and getting that script in place. The reader is the person that's really, recapping that story and really saying, this is what it's about. This is what works. This isn't working. This part isn't working. So that is the job. And can you see how important the job of the reader is, right? It's so important. This is a really critical document. This is the thing that makes the project move forward. That's why we're called Hollywood gatekeepers. I mean, readers are known as that. That's why we chose that title. Readers are known as the gatekeepers. They're the ones that are the first person to read that screenplay and make a comment on it. And sadly, they're often the last person to read that screenplay, because if they read it and they do a coverage that says this is just not ready, often that project just gets sent right back to the writer. Hopefully that writer will, sometimes they get the notes, sometimes they don't, but be able to rework it and resubmit it at different places or whatever. So for those of you that are writers, it's really good to have a reader look at your project before you put it in the pipeline, because once you submit that project and a different reader reads it, when they make that comment on it, it's really hard to resubmit a rewrite at that point, unless you're a working writer and have a relationship and they kind of know they want to work with you. But as a new young writer who's not necessarily young in age, but new in getting their work seen, then you want to make sure that that script is ready before you submit it. A lot of people ask, how can I get an agent? Why can't I just get an agent? I need an agent for my script. It's like, no, you need to make sure that script is ready. So a lot of people jump that step, or they just say, and readers do it too, just get me a job. I want a job. Can you get me a job? And they're really uptight and intense about, I need this job. But if your coverage isn't solid, you will have a hard time keeping that job if you do get the job, which is, you have to give a sample coverage to someone before they hire you. They need to see that you know what you're doing. And often they'll give you a sample script for you to cover so they can see that you know what you're doing. So if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to write a good, solid coverage, you won't be able to get or keep a job anyway. So it's all, all of it has to do with quality. Making sure that you have a quality script, making sure that you have a quality coverage that will get you work, and that will keep you work, that will sell your screenplay, and that will launch your career. That's what we talk about here at Hollywood Gatekeepers. We are really passionate about it. So that's what we're about. We really feel like this is really, really important. We think that readers kind of get a bad rap and are lumped into just a whole bunch of things that, in our opinion, the reader is the key. The reader is the first person to lay eyes on something. And so it's a really critical document and a really critical role in the whole thing. So as a reader, often literally millions of dollars are at stake as they try to figure out if they want to do this movie. Your role is really, really important, which is one of the reasons why we started Hollywood Gatekeepers to begin with, because we've been readers for a long time. We have learned the pitfalls, the sidetracks. We've learned how to negotiate the whole world of being a reader, how to write a good, solid coverage. We are really focused on writing coverages that inspire writers. We are a conduit. We are a champion for that writer. We are looking for the important things, the clues, the things that will make that screenplay good. We are looking for what we call the hidden gem. Often a writer will just write from their heart. They don't even really know. They're just pouring on the page. And I love that about writers, that I call them extroverted introverts, right? They're just pouring out on the page. And the reader then can go, here's a real, even if the script is a total mess, the reader is there to go, but look at this thing. This is super cool. And so we want a writer to read a coverage written by a reader and then be like, oh, I see how I can make my screenplay better. We don't want a writer to walk away from a coverage of a reader feeling dejected, like, oh, what am I even doing? I'm not going to quit that day job, whatever. We want them to see like, oh, they get me. They totally get me. And that's why we develop trainings. That's why we're here, because we really want to give the reader the skills to be able to just push that writer in a way that they go, holy smokes, I got to get this done. These suggestions are so good. You are blowing my mind with this. I want to take my screenplay and I'm going to just crush it with this screenplay because you told me what to do and where to go with it. That's how we train our readers. We also feel like our readers are a support system for those producers. Producers they're amazing. They have so much on their plate. They're not only reading screenplays and seeing what projects they want to do, they're in the midst of producing other projects. They're putting pieces together. They're raising the money. They're finding like the catering. They're figuring all of that out. They're like this plate spinners. They're running around. They got like, we're casting over here on this film. They're usually aren't doing one project. They're doing like 5 or 6 projects at a time. They're racing from project. This one's in developing. We're trying to figure out which script we want to do. This one we're like casting right now. This one we're trying to find a director over here. And they just are all over the place trying to like make it all happen. A lot on their shoulders. Really, the bulk of everything is on their shoulders in terms of getting that project off the ground. They're the ones raising the money to do it. And so if they have a reader that they know, okay, I'm over here, this project's coming in. Oh my goodness, this script is hot. Everyone wants it. I need to take a look at it. I simply don't have time. Here, reader, read the screenplay and call me and tell me, should I be doing this or not? Like, that's the level of support that we want to give to a producer, where we go like, I got it. Here's what you should do. Here's what it's about. Here's what you decide. I think it fits well within all the other things you're doing. You have an understanding of who that producer is, the kinds of projects that they're doing, where it fits within all of the things that they're doing. You have this bird's eye view of what's happening, and then you can fit within that, like what projects they should or shouldn't be doing. So those are kind of, why it's so important, and why here at Hollywood Gatekeepers, we are really, as you can see, I get a little bit riled up. I thought, you know what, today I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to dive in and I'm going to say, this is what it is, and this is why we're doing it. So I'm just like, let's cut to the chase this time. So this is why we are here. We feel that there is no training out there to really train a reader correctly, and really train a reader to be that conduit and that champion for a writer and that support system and that foundation for a producer. Those are the keys. The other element that's part of all of this, so you're helping out the writers, you're being the support system and foundation for a producer, and then there's you, the reader. So you have to focus on your own life. You have to be a solid thing so that you can handle all of this. And so we have a whole nother section as we train people, like how to manage your time, how to take care of yourself, how to be that person, how to be that positive light when you're reading a lot of screenplays, how to always be looking for that gem, how to if someone actually asked one time, what if I hate everything? And we know that if you hate everything, that means that it's not that everything's bad, it's that you've gotten into a rut in your own life. So we focus a lot on that element too. No one does that. I don't see anyone out there doing that kind of work. I don't even see people doing that kind of work with writers, and they really need it. Poor writers. They're sitting there covered in crackers trying to figure out their screenplay. They're extroverted introverts. They're like pouring their heart out on the page in their basement. It's like such a lonely, but yet expansive world. Their brains are out here. They have the secret weapon that they're writers, which is such a secret weapon. So if we can train readers to be coaches and consultants for writers so that you can be that person that goes, I got you. I get it. I get what you're going through. Let's make the screenplay so that you will just soar. And so that all of those thoughts and beautiful creativity that you have running through you will just go onto the page in a way that then an audience comes, and then pretty soon the person's holding their Oscar and everybody's crying. So it's like when you see those writers, when you watch these award shows or whatever, and you see interviews with people and they're so passionate and they start to thank people, who are they thanking? People, other people. Thank you to you for believing in me. Thank you for helping me spread the word. Thanks, Mom, for giving me the book that made me write the screenplay. You hear that almost every year someone says that. It's so universal, and it really is about getting that support. And we feel very passionately about training people to be that support. That's who you are. That's why we're here. And we're having an absolute blast. It's been so fun because we looked for you, the people that are in our midst, on our Facebook page, in our Facebook group, on our YouTube channel, in our mailing list, on our podcast. I mean, we're everywhere. And those people that have been drawn to us, we know are people that love movies and love to read. And those are the keys, right? And we're bringing that in so we can train you from the ground up with those as your foundation, as opposed to being someone who is wanting to make movies, a filmmaker maybe, and they're seeing this as sort of a haphazard stepping stone. That's fine. It can be a stepping stone, absolutely, for other careers. And we encourage that, actually. But what we want is those people that are starting out the gate with a love of movies and a love of reading, because that's going to be the thing that marries together to create this foundation that we're so passionate about. So we've been meeting with producers. Producers are learning about us. We haven't been around all that long yet, but we're starting to see amazing things happen. We have people in our group that are writing screenplays, that are reading each other's screenplays. We've had someone get their screenplay optioned because of it. We have people forming businesses together. We have people reading each other's screenplays and then writing screenplays together. We've launched into people writing. Like, it's been amazing, where I'm seeing that people are starting their own businesses. They're getting work. They're we had a bunch of people that came together at a film festival. And then while they were there, because they all were readers for the film festival, and so they read and they had producers badges and they were able to go to this festival. And then while they were there, they actually worked on a film. Like, they all started working on a film together. People that didn't know each other or didn't even know about Hollywood Gatekeepers a year prior came in from all different states, came together at this film festival, and were working on a movie together. This is the kind of thing that we didn't ever imagine would happen, and it's so exciting. So I wanted to share a little bit about what is a reader, what is a coverage, why are we doing this, like, what is the point? And there you have it. And I think I did that in one breath. I really feel like we hadn't been really just describing the whole thing in one short thing. So I wanted to make sure to do that. And beautiful. So I'm seeing you post, I love both reading and movies. And that is the key. That is the key to getting jobs as a reader and keeping a job as a reader. If you can maintain that love of all of it, and you can maintain that and be that conduit for that writer and be that support system foundation, so that producer could just lean on you when they've got so many balls in the air, and they can go, oh, thank goodness I have this person. So I really, really, really think it's amazing. So I love it. You have to get in there. You have to get in there. So I never joined a class, but I can't stop watching and dreaming. So keep on dreaming and then start doing. I mean, we're trying to give you the tools so that you can start doing. There's no obstacle. It's like, whatever it is, it's only persistence is the only, not having persistence is really the only obstacle. Everything else is figure outable. It's like all things that we can work together and figure it out to get you there, so that you can be that person who writes great coverage, who supports that writer, and who is a champion for that that producer. And enjoying the journey, having a blast in the meantime. There's been so many great friendships that are developing, and it's just this safe haven that we come together and we create all of these coverages, and we create this whole movement that it really is a movement to trained people from the ground up in a way that is so inspiring. And you guys inspire Doug and I every single day. You inspire me every single day. We're thinking of new ways that we can inspire and create and change and grow. We're bringing in Oscar winners to come in and talk about their process so that they can talk to the readers and tell them, this is what I think and this is how my story, and people can kind of relate to that. We're bringing in producers to say, this is how I look at reading. And it's just, and now all of them end their interviews with us by saying, oh, great, now I know where to go if I need to find a reader. Just so great, right? So we're having the greatest time. And I wanted to take a moment to thank you guys for, all of the support that you're giving us, and just say, we're just getting started here. We are just getting started. Now is the time to be part of this whole movement, because sky's the limit. We are building something that is really special here, and we are really, really having a great time. And we're so happy to have you here. So that's what we have for today. That is our training. Let's keep on going, keep on keeping on. Persistence is the key as you learn how to be an amazing reader, to write spectacular coverage and be that cheerleader for the reader. Cheerleader, I keep messing up, cheerleader for the writer, and foundation and support system for that producer. I know that you can do it. I see how spectacular every single person who is here. I see how spectacular you are, and I just can't wait to see where it all leads. We are just enjoying this journey so much, and we're so glad to have you here. So just wanted to say that, and just really thank you. You both inspire me as well. Thank you very much. You are inspiring us every single day. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.